Hi, I'm Laura and this is tropetrinitytrilogy, and today I'll be analyzing Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth to discuss how to write an intelligent fight scene. Also, just saying, check out my cool Spartan shirt my mom got me. And also, this is the original, epic poem for the Battle of Troy written on here. And then I have a cool Spartan hat, so I love this shirt. It's awesome, and you will see it in a lot more videos because I really like it. So this video is sort of a sequel to my writing fight scenes like a video game video, which I will link in all the things, and I definitely recommend you check that out. However, in that video, it had gotten so long that I didn't really have time to analyze how a book wrote a fight scene. And I did give an example from Disney's Aladdin. However, I do think it would be helpful to analyze a fight scene in the medium of literature because movies have the advantage of visuals, which, since books don't, approaching them is very different. Now, in that video, I discuss how you can set up different things before the fight so that the reader can feel like they're involved and understand how the protagonist wins, which is part of why I picked this example. This is a great example for that video. So this sort of combines just writing a fight in the form of writing and also those specific tips I gave. And this fight in this book is a great example because it is very self-contained. The antagonist that Percy fights and the setting in which they fight are all just for that scene, which isn't necessarily what every fight should be, and it isn't better than having a fight where the characters are set up throughout the whole book, because that is great for our final battle. However, for an example, it's perfect because it's all self-contained and it's easy to give to you. So also it's great because this fight, the only spoiler will be for this fight. There is one character's name, but I'll redact that, so everything else spoiler free except for one scene in this book. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate to you how to depict both parties in the fight's abilities and weaknesses in a way that makes the fight satisfying to the reader. Ooh, and setting. Don't forget setting. That is another thing that this scene sets up great. I will add the caveat that I don't personally think every fight in Percy Jackson is actually that great, but this one really is. So just don't pick up this series expecting every one of them to fit these rules. So a lot of them do tend to be protagonist is good at something because reasons, or protagonist gets better at something because reasons. But this one is very intelligent and is well written. And also, even though Percy Jackson's very lighthearted and comedic, it does get serious at times, but this fight is very fun. The advice I'm giving can apply to any tone you want to give. If you want an emotional fight, a scary one where you're biting your nails, wondering who will live, you can still do what is done here. You would just write it differently. The only thing I need to establish to you that take place before this scene are Percy Jackson's abilities. So here are his stats. 1, he's an agile fighter. 2, he's clever and quick thinking. And 3, he has a pen that turns into a sword when uncapped. Also, whenever he loses his sword Riptide, it is turned back into a pen and summoned back to his pocket. So first we're going to see how Riordan sets the scene. Or I guess read. The point of this is to show how to make a fight without it being visual. But you see words. Whatever. I guess it wasn't the largest arena I'd ever been in, but it seemed pretty spacious considering the whole place was underground. The dirt floor was circular, just big enough that you could drive a car around the rim if you pulled it really tight. In the center of the arena, a fight was going on between a giant and a centaur. The centaur looked panicked. He was galloping around his enemy using his sword and shield while the giant swung a javelin the size of a telephone pole, and the crowd cheered. The first tier of seats was 12 feet above the arena floor. Plain stone benches wrapped all the way around, and every seat was full. There were giants, draconae, demigods, telekines, and stranger things, bat-winged demons, and creatures that seemed half human and half you name it. Bird, reptile, insect, mammal. But the creepiest things were the skulls. The arena was full of them. They ringed the edge of the railing. 3-foot-high piles of them decorated the steps between the benches. They grinned from pikes at the back of the stands and hung on chains from the ceiling like horrible chandeliers. Some of them looked very old, nothing but bleached white bone. Others looked a lot fresher. I'm not going to describe them. Believe me, you don't want me to. In the middle of this, proudly displayed on the side of the spectator's wall, was something that made no sense to me. A green banner with the trident of Poseidon in the center. What was that doing in a horrible place like this? This setup not only lets us know what the location looks like so we can better visualize it in our head, but it also lets us know what Percy has to work with. The location of the fight should affect how your characters maneuver during the fight, and it can be both an asset and a hindrance to your protagonist. So if your fight takes place in a grocery store, maybe have characters throwing fruit at each other or ramming carts into each other. Or if it takes place in a blacksmith's weapon making room, your characters can use different weapons or tools to fight each other and constantly be swapping out what they're using. The point is, by making the location important to how the fight plays out, you can make the world feel more alive and also have some really creative, fun things. And also, in the case of this story, you can have a really smart fight. Now, let's read a bit about Percy's opponent. Next to him sat the largest giant I'd ever seen, much larger than the one on the floor fighting the centaur. The giant next to Redacted must have been 15 feet tall, easy, and so wide he took up 3 seats. He wore only a loincloth like a sumo wrestler. His skin was dark red and tattooed with blue wave designs. And then let's skip to when Percy talks to this giant. I stared up at Antaeus. How can you be a son of Poseidon? Antaeus laughed, and the rest of the crowd laughed too. I am his favorite son, Antaeus boomed. Behold my temple to the Earthshaker, built from the skulls of all of those I've killed in his name. Your skull shall join them. I stared in horror at all the skulls, hundreds of them, and the banner of Poseidon. How could this be a temple for my dad? My dad was a nice guy. He never asked me for a Father's Day card, much less somebody's skull. Percy, Annabeth yelled. His mother is Gaia. Her Lastrygonian captor clamped his hand over her mouth. His mother is Gaia? The Earth Goddess? Annabeth was trying to tell me that this was important, but I didn't know why. Maybe just because the guy had 2 godly parents, that would make him even harder to kill. Now this explains why there are so many skulls everywhere around the arena, but it also depicts to the reader how sick Antaeus is in thinking this is what Poseidon wants, but also how cocky and arrogant he is, believing he is Poseidon's favorite son, and laughing at Percy. Which I have to say, it's a really nice touch to intertwine the antagonist's personality with the setting. Now, let's get to the fight. I pointed my sword at Antaeus. Winner takes all. I win, we all go free. You win, we die. Swear upon the river of Styx. Antaeus laughed. This shouldn't take long. I swear to your terms. He leaped off the railing into the arena. Good luck, Ethan told me. You'll need it. Then he backed up quickly. Antaeus cracked his knuckles. He grinned, and I saw that even his teeth were etched in wave patterns, which must have made brushing after meals a real pain. Weapons, he asked. I'll stick with my sword. You? He held up his hands and wiggled his fingers. I don't need anything else. Master Redacted, you will referee this one. Redacted smiled down at me with pleasure. Antaeus lunged. I rolled under his legs and stabbed him in the back of his thigh. Arrgh! He yelled, but where blood should have come out, there was a sprout of sand, like I'd busted the side of an hourglass. It spilled into the dirt floor, and the dirt collected around his leg, almost like a cast. When the dirt fell away, the wound was gone. He charged at me. Fortunately, I'd had some experience fighting giants. I dodged sideways this time and stabbed him under the arm. Riptide's blade was buried to the hilt in his ribs. That was the good news. The bad news was that it wrenched out of my hand when the giant turned, and I was thrown across the arena weaponless. Antaeus bellowed in pain. I waited for him to disintegrate. No monster had ever withstood a direct hit from my sword like that. The celestial bronze blade had to be destroying his essence, but Antaeus groped for the hilt, pulled out the sword, and tossed it behind him. More sand poured from the wound, but again the earth rose up to cover him. Dirt coated his body all the way to his shoulders. As soon as the dirt spilled away, Antaeus was fine. Now you see why I never lose, demigod, Antaeus gloated. Come here and let me crush you. I'll make it quick. Antaeus stood between me and my sword. Desperately I glanced to either side, and I caught Annabeth's eye. The earth, I thought. What had Annabeth been trying to tell me? Antaeus' mother was Gaia, the Earth Mother, the most ancient goddess of all. Antaeus' father might have been a Poseidon, but Gaia was keeping him alive. I couldn't hurt him as long as he was touching the ground. I tried to skirt around him, but Antaeus anticipated my move. He blocked my path, chuckling. He was just toying with me now. He had me cornered. I looked up at the chains from the ceiling, dangling the skulls of his enemies on hooks. Suddenly, I had an idea. I feinted to the other side. Antaeus blocked me. The crowd jeered and screamed at Antaeus to finish me off, but he was having too much fun. "Puny boy," he said, "not a worthy son of the sea god." I felt my pen return to my pocket, but Antaeus wouldn't know about that. He would think Riptide was still in the dirt behind him. He would think my goal was to get my sword. It wasn't much of an advantage, but it was all I had. I charged straight ahead, crouching low so he would think I was going to roll between his legs again. While he was stooping, ready to catch me like a grounder, I jumped for all I was worth, kicking off his forearms, scrambling up his shoulders like it was a ladder, placing my shoe on his head. He did the natural thing. He straightened up indignantly and yelled, "Hey!" I pushed off, using his force to catapult me towards the ceiling. I caught the top of the chain, and the skulls and hooks jangled beneath me. I wrapped my legs around the chain, just like I used to do at the ropes course in gym class. I drew Riptide and sawed off the chain next to me. "Come down here, coward," Antaeus bellowed. He tried to grab me, but I was just out of reach. Hanging on for dear life, I yelled, "Come up and get me, or are you too slow and fat?" He howled and made another grab for me. He caught a chain and tried to pull himself up. While he was struggling, I lowered my sawed-off chain, hook first. It took me 2 tries, but finally I snagged Antaeus' loincloth. "Wah!" he yelled. Quickly I slipped the free chain through the fastening link of my own chain, pulled it taut, and secured it the best I could. Antaeus tried to slip back to the ground, but his butt stayed suspended by his loincloth. He had to hold on to the other chains with both hands to avoid getting flipped upside down. I prayed the loincloth and the chain would hold up for a few more seconds. While Antaeus cursed and flailed, I scrambled around the chains, swinging and cutting like I was some kind of crazed monkey. I made loops with hooks and metal links. I don't know how I did it. My mom always said I had a gift for getting stuff tangled up. Plus, I was desperate to save my friends. Anyway, within a couple minutes, the giant was suspended above the ground, hopelessly snarled in chains and hooks. I dropped to the floor, panting and sweaty. My hands were raw from climbing. "Get me down!" demanded Antaeus. "Free him!" Redacted ordered. "He is our host. I am Captain Riptide. I'll free him." And I stabbed the giant in the stomach. He bellowed and sand poured out, but he was too far up to touch the earth, and the dirt did not rise to help him. Antaeus just dissolved, pouring out bit by bit, until there was nothing left but empty swinging chains, a really big loincloth on a hook, and a bunch of grinning skulls dancing above me like they finally had something to smile about. Boom. That last line was so awesome. But anyway, the reason I love this fight so much is that the reader can deduce the solution alongside Percy. His victory isn't convenient, but instead it's like a puzzle where we're given all the pieces alongside him and we just have to be smart enough to put them together. The antagonist's skills and weaknesses are clearly depicted through the fight, the setting, and his words in a way that is efficient and entertaining. And of course, you don't have to wait till right before the fight or during the fight to set up the characters or the setting. However, that is good for an example where I want it to be self-contained. But the way Antaeus is defeated is not only a clever use of setting, it is also poetic. Antaeus hung those chains to display the skulls of his victims. It was his own hubris and cruelty that was his downfall, and that is brilliant. Now, I wanted to give this example because it's a great book example, and also I would add that the poetic way he's defeated in this book is definitely something you should consider in yours, especially for like the main villain that your protagonist defeats. And of course, when it comes to that, you can establish quirks of your main villain all the way through your book. And if you would like to see more of what I mean with setting up, and another example that I used, you should check out my writing fight scenes like a video game video, which I'll link below. And also another video which has some great movie examples is Sinfic's 3 brilliant fight scenes, and I'll link the one below. And the one I really like is the fight from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I think that is a great example of one that isn't quite as obvious as this and is a lot more boom, I didn't see that coming, but it makes perfect sense. But it's also based on strategy like this one. Anyway, thanks thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my example of Percy Jackson and the Battle of the Labyrinth. Please tell me what you think down below. If you have another great example from any medium, book, movie, even video game, because I love video games. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.